Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to cover one of my favorite cartridges, the 300 WSM. It's one of the most powerful and versatile short action Magnum cartridges on the market today. We're going to go over ballistic performance, we'll do a little brief history on it, compare it to some other similar rounds, and talk about some ideal uses for hunting. So if that interests you, stick around and we'll get right to it. All right, the 300 WSM or Winchester Short Magnum. So what exactly is this? Well, it was introduced in 2001 by Winchester as part of their Short Magnum series, designed to provide Magnum level performance in a more compact, short action rifle platform. The idea is just to give hunters and shooters a high-powered, long-range cartridge that could still be chambered in lighter, more manageable rifles. In the late 90s, engineers at Winchester started looking at a fatter case without the belt to create the Short Magnum cartridge. So what they did was they took the 404 Jeffries, shortened it from 2.875 inches down to 2.1 inches, which is just slightly longer than the 308. They also added that 35-degree shoulder on it and dubbed it the 300 WSM. Made its first appearance at the 2001 SHOT Show, where people found it very interesting. Winchester immediately began developing other WSM cartridges, starting with the 270 WSM and the 7mm WSM, which were both introduced in 2002. And then shortly after that, they introduced the 325 WSM, I believe, in 2004. So taking a little bit closer look at the 300 WSM and how it was designed, it uses the same bullet diameter, .308, same as your 308 Winchester or the 30-06, which gives us a wide variety of bullet selection. However, with the shorter, more compact case, the 300 WSM burns powder faster and more efficiently, producing excellent muzzle velocities that can exceed 3,000 feet per second. Ballistically, the 300 WSM performs with impressive precision. Its high velocity and flat trajectory make it great for both medium and large game at extended ranges. The round typically shoots heavier bullets ranging from 150 to 200 grains, giving it a good combination of velocity, energy, and knockdown power. So I put together a comparison chart between this and 3 other cartridges. So let's take a look at that and see how this stacks up against those other 30 cals.
Alright, so here we go comparing the 300 WSM against 3 other cartridges. And the 3 that I selected were the 308, the 30-06, and the 300 Win Mag. I went with the 308 because the 300 WSM is a short action. Therefore, the comparable short action 30 caliber, in my opinion, would be the 308. We went with the 300 Win Mag because the Winchester Short Magnum is supposed to be a Magnum performance cartridge in a short action, so we have to compare it against its big brother, the 300 Win Mag. And of course, we have the tried and true 30-06 Springfield. It wouldn't be a true 30 caliber comparison if we didn't throw in the 30-06. So what I did, first of all, was I looked at the useful case capacity for all the cartridges. I wanted to look at compare the grain weights and the G1BC of the bullet, trying to get an apples to apples comparison. I see a lot of comparisons where it's, this cartridge shooting a heavier or lighter bullet and it's throwing off the muzzle velocities and trajectories. These are 30 calibers. They all have a little bit different cartridge, so they're going to launch those bullets out at different speeds, but at least we're looking at the same grain weight bullet. A lot of times hunters are looking for a specific weight bullet when they're hunting a certain game, so that's what we want to look at. Then I looked at the muzzle velocity, energy downrange out to 500 yards. We looked at the trajectory out to 500 yards. And we also wanted to look at the energy, the 1,000 foot-pounds of energy downrange for whitetail or deer size game, and then energy downrange for elk size game, which would be 1,500 foot-pounds of energy, and the felt recoil, and an 8-pound rifle Now, an 8-pound rifle is going to be light for a Magnum cartridge. I understand that, but again, I'm trying to eliminate any differences between the 3, 4, 5 comparisons that I'm going to be doing across the board. In this case, we're looking at 4. Trying to eliminate any differences so you can see what they're going to be. So anyway, we'll jump back into it. I was able to find factory ammunition for the 300 WSM, 308, the Odd 6, and the 300 Win Mag, all using Winchester Deer Season XP, shooting the exact same bullet, the exact same BC. The only difference is the case capacity and the volume. Or I shouldn't say the only difference, but the main difference is going to be how much powder those cartridges can hold. As you can see, the Win Mag is the largest, followed up by the short Magnum, the short action version. I think it's about 9% less useful case capacity, but even though that short mag is a short action, it still has more useful case capacity than the 30-06, about 17% more, I believe. And then of course the 308, it's just a short action, shorter version of the 30-06. It just doesn't have that much volume. So, and that's going to show as we take a look at the muzzle velocities and the energy downrange. The 300 WSM and the 300 Win Mag, both factory ammo boxes, both show 3260 out of the muzzle, which is going to give you 3,000 foot-pounds of energy at 100 yards, and that is a wallop. Out to 200 yards, it's going to be the same case, 2544 and 2,141 out to 300. The 308 and the Odd 6 are trailing behind. Again, it's that much more powder, or that much less powder in those cartridges, just not pushing that seed fast enough. So out to 500 yards, we're still 1,485 foot-pounds of energy. It's pretty good out of those short mag and the Win Mag. Looking at the drop out to 200 yards, again, these are sighted in at 100 yards using a very similar theoretical rifle. It's a scope is 1.5 inches above the center line of the bore. We're sighting it in at 100 yards using my conditions, roughly at my elevation. So again, trying to just eliminate any inconsistencies as much as we can to try to get a fair comparison against all these, as fair as we can possibly do. So the 300 short mag and the 300 Win Mag, again, they're going to be identical because they're pushing that bolt at the same speed. 2 3/8 inch drop at 200 yards, about 9 inches, 9 1/3 inch out to 300 yards, and then 40 1/2 out to 500 yards. Effective range on white-tailed deer, so that's carrying 1,000 foot-pounds of energy downrange, and how far that is for the 300 short mag and the 300 Win Mag is going to be 700 yards. 520 yards for the 308 and 560 yards for the Odd 6. So not bad out of those other two, but the Magnums and the Magnum and the short mag definitely win in that category. So you elk hunters taking long-range shots at elk, 300 WSM's gonna carry 1,500 foot-pounds of energy out 490 yards, as well as 300 Win Mag. Again, shooting this particular projectile. Looking at recoil, lastly, now these Magnums in an 8-pound setup is awfully light. You're going to feel a lot more of that recoil. So 31.25 foot-pounds of energy felt out of the 300 Win Mag and 28.5 out of the short mag, and then less out of the other two, 21.75 out of the 30-06. It's very manageable, and even more manageable is that short action 308 at 17. Alright, we looked at the 150 grain. Now we're going to take a look at the 165 grain. I couldn't find all of the exact same factory ammo for every one, but I tried looking at the ballistic coefficient of the bullets as well as the grain weight, getting those as close as I could, with the exception of the 300 Win Mag with that 450 BC. One interesting thing I noticed, and you'll see right away, the 300 WSM, the box posted 300 3,125 feet per second out of the muzzle, opposed to the, or excuse me, compared to the 300 Win Mag at 3,050. So 75 feet per second faster with a slightly higher BC bullet, and you'll see that play out when we look at our trajectories and downrange energy. So out of the muzzle, a little bit higher. The 300 WSM is slightly higher than what it was at the 150 grain. That's 3,123 foot-pounds of energy at 100 yards. 300 Win Mag dips a little bit at 2,949. Again, it is a heavier bullet, but it's moving a little bit slower, so not quite as much, but it's only dropped by 57 foot-pounds of energy. It's negligible. You can read the chart going out to 500 yards. Now, you'll see here it's going to start, the 300 WSM starts to separate itself from the 300 Win Mag slightly, and that's because of that higher muzzle velocity and the higher ballistic coefficient. So at 500 yards, the 300 WSM is carrying 1,746 foot-pounds of energy compared to the 300 Win Mag at 1,580. Something really cool that I noticed, and this gap would shrink even more if we pulled our chart out farther, but the 30-06 carries 1,528 foot-pounds of energy out to 500 yards. That's not much less than the 300 Win Mag. I can see why a lot of deer hunters, big game hunters, really love the 30-06, especially in that 165 grain, because that's great muzzle energy and great downrange energy carried out of that action. So I thought that was pretty cool. Looking at the trajectory or the drop, the 300 short mag is going to be less, again shooting faster, flatter. Higher BC bullet, it's going to start out flatter at 2.6 inches compared to 2.82, not much difference there. The odd 6 right behind it at 3.11. Looking to skip out to 500 yards, it starts to separate a little bit. The 300 short mag only drops 41.59 inches compared to 44.94 out of the 300 Win Mag. And there it is again, the 30-06, only about 2.5 inches or 2.5 inches more than the 300 Win Mag at 47.76. Pretty awesome. Here's where the BC of the bullets come into play. Carrying 1,000 foot-pounds of energy downrange, 300 WSM, 840 yards. It's going to carry that energy out there compared to the 300 Win Mag. You're looking at 760 yards, so 80 more yards out of the short mag. And again, that 30-06, it's right there with the 300 Win Mag in this comparison here. Only 10 yards less than the 300 Win Mag is the odd 6. And just kind of mind-boggling until you throw it all on paper here and see it all play out. But pretty cool. Elk size game, so carrying 1,500 foot-pounds of energy downrange. 300 WSM goes out to 590 yards. 300 Win Mag takes you out to 530, and the odd 6, 510. But looking at the 308, that little cartridge that could, 380 yards for you elk hunters, and most deer hunters that are gonna get an out-of-state tag and go elk hunting, 380 yards, 300 yards that's a poke for a lot of deer hunters. So looking at this, the 308, not a terrible option. Lighter recoiling, going to be able to stay on target and get a follow-up shot quicker. I don't know. I'll let you decide that. I know a lot of people bash that 308, not really a elk cartridge, but you know what? It very well could be a darn good one. And I don't know if it's as good as the odd 6, which I can see why that's a fan favorite as well, but 24.25 foot-pounds of felt recoil out of the odd 6 compared to 18.75 out of the 308. Then your Magnums are going to be closer to 30 foot-pounds of felt recoil, so something to take into consideration there. Pretty cool ballistics out of that odd. Alright, we're going to take a look at some heavier caliber bullets here now. Obviously the 180 is pretty heavy out of the 308. Not what you'd consider heavy out of a 300 Win Mag, or it's not super heavy for the odd 6, and it's about the top end for the short mag. And I say it's about the top end for the short mag because those longer 30 caliber bullets really start eating up into the case capacity of those short action cartridges. You just can't stick that bullet out very far, basically what I'm trying to say. 300 Win Mag, a little more wiggle room there, but anyway, we'll take a look at them. 180 grain, similar BCs as close as I could, not exact, but all the same grain weight bullet. 300 WSM and the 300 Win Mag both pushing that 180 grain out at 29.50. That is still boogieing big time. Let me scroll up just a little bit, looking at the energy, the muzzle velocity. Sorry, we'll look at the muzzle velocity, which is 29.50, but the energy at 100 yards. Short mag just slightly inching out the Win Mag, and that's because of that slightly different ballistic coefficient on those bullets. Looking all the way out to 500 yards, and the gap starts to widen on the short mag versus the Win Mag. Not much, 1752 compared to 1737. The 308, slowest muzzle velocity, is not going to get that bullet very quickly downrange, and therefore it's not carrying a lot of energy downrange at 1323 foot-pounds of energy at 500 yards. And the odd 6, not too bad, 1489 at 500 yards. Move on to looking at the trajectory of those. And the 180 grain down here at the bottom, drop at 200 yards, 3.06 inches and 3.07 inches out of the short mag and Win Mag. Extremely comparable all the way out. The odd 6 is falling behind, but again, it's only about 9 inches, 8.5, 9 inches behind the 300 Win Mag and the short mag. And then, of course, that 308 just doesn't have enough oomph, enough powder volume to push that seed fast enough to keep up with the big boys. So how far can we take 1,000 foot-pounds of energy downrange with these 180 grains? Again, the 300 WSM slightly edges out the 300 Win Mag in the 180 grain bullet. 860 yards it can go compared to 850, but only 100 yards less is the 30-06. That's 750 yards. Not too bad. And even though that short action 308 with a lot less powder volume, still 680 yards, it's carrying 1,000 foot-pounds of energy downrange. That's pretty darn good. Looking at elk size game, excuse me. Now looking at some elk size game, the 300 WSM slightly overtakes the 300 Win Mag here again, just by 10 yards, but 590 and 600 yards out of those Magnums. 490 yards out of the 30-06, which was surprisingly 20 yards less than it's when it was with the 165 grain bullet, so kind of interesting there. And the 308 was able to carry that out to 410 yards. Not too shabby.
Alright guys, so what do you think of the 300 WSM? Especially after looking at the comparison I put together there in my spreadsheet. In my book, this thing is a standout winner. Winchester hit the nail on the head, taking that long action Win Mag performance and putting it into a short action compact platform. The 300 WSM line of cartridges, I haven't shot the 325, but the other ones, they're ballistically sound and extremely fun to shoot. It's just amazing to see the performance you get out of these short actions. A couple standout things from that chart I put together. One was that this little guy, the short case, was comparable and in some cases beat the 300 Win Mag. And also 30-06 is no slouch. I can see why there's a large fan base and people who stand behind that. That's an excellent round in itself. So Well, that's going to do it for my comparison of the 300 WSM to other 30 caliber cartridges. Hopefully you liked the video and found something interesting as much as I did doing that comparison. If so, hit that like and subscribe button, and until next time, we'll catch you guys later.